Adopted. The amendment basically takes what was a required procedure and makes it optional. So I'd like to begin by just asking that the amendment in nature substitute be adopted. It had been passed out to you. It's HB 1000.
You have a motion? Okay, all those in favor of adopting the amendment? Please respond by saying aye. Okay, can you explain your amendment?
Absolutely. So what the amendment does, and I'll explain the bill as well, but the amendment makes the procedure to photograph the voter at the polls an optional procedure rather than a required procedure. The original bill required it for all registrars, all election officers. The amendment simply makes it optional, allows the prior procedure. So if I can go ahead and explain the bill, I think it'll all be clear.
House Bill 1093 is go ahead.
H Bill 1004, actually, is the name of it, is the bill number. No problem. Thank you, Madam Chair. So currently, under current law, if someone comes in to vote and they don't have the proper ID, they can sign for a provisional ballot. And that's under current law what they do. And most of these tend to be people who are elderly, who have expired driver's licenses, things like this. What they do is they go and they sign the green form. They put in the last part of their social security number. They sign. They are who they say they are. These are voters who are in the poll books. These are not, someone who's not in the poll books. These are voters who are registered voters in the poll books. They say they are who they say they are. Currently, they have to sign the provisional form, and then those provisional forms are turned over by the election officer to the registrar in that evening. And then the voter has to do one more thing to have their vote counted. Either they have to submit an ID to the registrar, or they have to come in person by the noon of Friday after Election Day. And in person, the registrar then takes their picture and issues them an ID. What my bill would do is would allow an optional procedure to allow this to be taken on Election Day. In other words, the voter is already there. Some of these are very elderly voters. Some of them have traveled a bit of a distance. But in any case, they could do it right there at the precinct rather than, particularly in rural counties, sometimes having to drive 25, 30 miles, get there before the Friday at noon. Some people get off for Election Day. They don't get off work to come back. And registrars tell me that the majority of people do not come back. If they vote provision on Election Day, some do come back, but the majority do not. And so in essence, they've lost their right to vote. This affects a relatively small number of people. The photographs, the device to take the photographs would have to be approved by the local registrar. But I suggest to you that it's very easy to take photos today. Most of us have. The problem I'm trying to fix is that voters have to come back after Election Day to the registrar in order to have their vote counted.
Why is it a burden for folks when they register to get a photo ID, which again, they can get a free photo ID at the registrar's office?
But what happens, for example, is a number of voters have a driver's. I'll give you an example. Former Speaker Jim Wright, Texas. This happened in Texas. Had a driver's license for many years. He got into his 90s. His driver's license expired. Some people don't know their driver's license expired. They don't drive anymore. They come to the polls, the same polls where they voted for 70 years, and their driver's license has expired. So now they have to come back, not just to their precinct, but to the registrar's office. In some of the rural counties, that could mean driving 50 miles down the mountainside.
Levine, so what you want is you want an election official who's supposed to be recording votes from the standpoint of making sure that system works, or at the poll book to take time away from the line to step out, take a picture, and then unsecurely send it to potentially election officials. Now, would it go to the central office and then be transmitted to the poll book and the poll officials there, or is it just at the central office? And in a rural county, you realize you may have a long line at a presidential year or gubernatorial year, and they don't have that many extra people.
So currently, the
So how
procedure.
is that gonna work?
So currently, the procedure is, if someone comes in without an ID, they have to step out of the line, they're required to fill out a provisional ballot. They have to get the person to state, find their name on the poll book, they have to sign their name, they have to put the last 4 digits of their social security number, they have to explain the provisional system to that voter. That's all required by current law. And if the voter gets upset that they're not allowed to vote, or they have to come back, they have to explain that they have to come back and come back by Friday. That's all under current law.
By provisional ballot at that point. So what you're saying is you want them to step out and take a picture, and then we don't know where it's gonna be transmitted.
I'll explain.
And then verify that they're eligible. I'm trying to figure out your process.
Sure, so the process is, once
The
they've,
process.
once they've undergone all of that, stepped out of the line, taken the time to do all of that, which is required by current law, they would have to additionally take 5 seconds, maybe 10 seconds, take a picture. I could take your picture, sir, in 5 seconds. Maybe if you don't know how to work a smartphone, it might take 15 seconds. I can tell you that the registrars have told me that this affects relatively few numbers of people, but remember, this procedure does not have one, they could borrow one, they simply have to transmit it electronically to the election officer, and I emphasize this is voluntary. No one has to undergo this procedure if they don't want to. The registrars have told me they want to help people vote, particularly someone who's maybe 93 years old and has voted in that same place for 70 years, but their driver's license is expired. They want to help them that day rather than I can show other forms. This is just to take the exact same procedure as it exists 2 days later and bring it to the polling place if registrars want to do that.
Well, I just want to make the point, Madam Chair, that last year we had a bill, and Delegate Cole's comments would have been very appropriate for the bill that passed out here last year on putting your photo on your absentee ballot application. I made the same point the chairman made about why that was a bad idea. We don't have a national registry of photos of people to compare it to, and the governor vetoed the bill for good reasons, and I'm afraid your bill suffers from the same problem. I mean, there's nothing, you're gonna have to go back to, you're gonna have to go the next day to show get enough photo ID and show that the picture they took on election day is you. I mean, just because you have a picture, we don't have a national registration, we don't have a national ID.
That's true, and you could argue that frankly, no one can get a photo ID at any time because no one has a photo to get a photo ID to compare for. When you get a photo the first time, there is no photo to compare it to. And that's, currently under current procedure, when you register to vote, you don't submit a photo. So this is something that happens right now, and it simply brings it to the polling place. And I have registrars who talk about that procedure.
I have a motion.
Could I have,
Madam Chairman, I would move that we PPL the bill.
Madam Chair, could we at least get the registrars who support the bill to explain why they do?